Peak years ago, and on my own I came up here to take a look, and it's really quite beautiful. Governor Inslee, who is known where I'm from as the environmental governor, and Mayor Harley, Senator Murray, Senator Maria Cantwell, I mean, you got everybody here. You got Representative Smith, Larson, DeBene, Schreier, and it's an honor to be in this beautiful park with y'all. You know, Edward Abbey, the writer who once worked as a park ranger, I didn't know he had been a park ranger, to tell you the truth, wrote the following: "Every man, every woman carries in heart and mind an image of an ideal place, the right place, the one true home, known or unknown, actual or visionary." For many Seattle families, I think we're in that place right now, here in this park, and places like this. There are not that many like this, unfortunately. And all around this country, there used to be a hell of a lot more forests like this, but we're doing everything we can. Everybody behind me and all of you want desperately to protect what we have and increase what we have. You know, our natural wonders you know, inspire, and the reflection inspires our to take action. You know, my mother had an expression, and I apologize to my colleagues. They've heard me do two things my whole career: quote my mother and father, and quote Irish poets. But I'm not going to quote any Irish poets today, okay? But you know, she said, out of everything difficult, something good will come if you look hard enough for it. And I think that we're in one of those moments in world history and in American history where we've reached the point that the crisis on the environment has become so obvious, with the notable exception of the former president, that we really have an opportunity to do things we couldn't have done 2, 5, 10 years ago. And I want to talk about that today with leaders who understand that to their core, the folks standing behind me. I wish you didn't have to stand. Don't you guys have any chairs? I'm not used to them standing for me, you know. Anyway, but here's the deal. As I said, Governor Inslee is the climate governor. I've gone to him throughout asking him for advice and counsel. And thanks for welcoming me back to Washington State, Gov, and to Mayor Harrell. The passport to the city is very much appreciated. I hope I don't do anything to have it revoked. And Congressman Smith, thank you for your commitment to the environment, including helping our armed forces transition to clean energy technologies. One of the things I've found out as the President of the United States, I get to spend a lot of that money. I get to decide where, no, I'm not joking. And we're going to completely, we're going to start the process where every vehicle in the United States military, every vehicle is going to be climate friendly. Every vehicle. We're going to have no, I mean it. We're spending billions of dollars to do it. And it's going to matter. You know, it matters. You know, in my view, this crisis, as I said, is a genuine opportunity. An opportunity to do things we wanted to do, and only now have become so apparent. On this day, 52 years ago, millions of Americans of every age and background rallied together on Earth Day. The guy I worked with as a young senator back in those days was a guy named Gaylord Nelson from Wisconsin. And the guy who helped organize Earth Day was a guy who's from Delaware, worked for me as well, and Mike McCabe. And you know, they had a vision for a healthier, more prosperous America. And over time, they delivered. They delivered. Cleaner water, proof that sustainable environment can mean a stronger economy. You know, and one of the things I'm proudest of in our administration, before I went into detail with my quote, green agenda, I got all the unions together. Literally got all the unions together. Bigger said the unions view it as against their interest. And starting with the IBW electric workers, they endorsed it. And every union has stepped up because they figured it out. Their jobs, they're the ones who can help us transition in ways like never before. It's not going to cost them jobs. It's going to increase jobs. The IBW is going to be building 50,000 electric stations, electric starting stations all across America, for example. And so, look, change continues today, and a new generation of Americans helping us lead the way against the threat of climate change. You know, every time I get a little down, I don't know about my colleagues, I suspect they're the same, I just turn on the television or take a look at all the young people. This young generation is not going to put up with all this stuff. No, they're not. I mean, they are really, really energized, whether it's basic human rights or it's the environment. They're just not stopping. And from day one of my administration, we've stood with them. Governor, I hate to admit it, but I was part of that early Earth Day. I was only 7 years old, but God, oh my Lord, I can't admit I said that. But anyway, it's been a passion of mine as long as I've been involved in public life. The first thing, what got me involved in politics, not that it matters to you all, but I was thinking about it on the way over here. I was a young attorney in Delaware, and they wanted to, across the top of my state, they wanted to connect two highways, and it's through what is the most beautiful part of the state. But instead of being willing to do it in an area that in fact had no consequence for the environment, they decided to put it through areas that were straighter but more damaging. And I got involved to try to stop the construction of that highway, which I did. That's what got me involved. And it caused me great problems because I ended up having to run for the county council, which was the hardest job I ever had. Didn't want it. At any rate, but as a matter of fact, in 1986 in the United States Senate, I introduced and we passed the first Global Climate Protection Act, the first time. And it was a warming legislation in the Senate. And on Earth Day, you know, we convened last year over 40 leaders from around the globe, reasserting America's leadership on climate after 4 years of administration denying that there was a climate crisis, denying that there was any need to do anything about the environment. And the commitments galvanized at that meeting, including our own goal of cutting emissions from 50 to 52% below 25 levels by 2030 and reaching net zero emissions by 2050, taking the steps the United States needs to limit the planet's warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, and the rest of the world started to come along. We did more than set bold goals, we acted to achieve them. Last year, with all the disappointments we faced, but last year the United States deployed the most solar, wind, and battery storage in American history. And we made record-setting investments in clean energy in rural America. For example, we have a $1 billion program that no one knows about except the Department of Agriculture, the grants and loans for farmers and rural co-ops to deploy solar and storage and power lines to carry clean energy across the country. We're investing in technology so you can heat and cool your home when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, because out here in Silicon Valley you're developing the battery technology. They showed me one that's about a little bit wider than this podium, about that thick and about this wide, that in fact you can install in your home, and when the sun ain't shining, that stored electricity runs the whole deal. And by the way, windmills don't cause cancer. And across the country, we have enough clean energy capacity to power now 56 million homes. Now, here's what we're doing with automobiles. I'm an automobile buff. I have a '68 Corvette that does nothing but pollute the air, but I don't drive very much. I brought together the automobile manufacturers. And Mary Barry, who runs General Motors, is a fine person. At the time, she was suing the state of California, General Motors, for their increased mileage requirements that exceeded the federal standard. I mean, the federal standard. And the argument General Motors was making was you couldn't exceed the federal standard locally. And we had a long talk. And I didn't suggest it, but she dropped that suit and contacted me and said, I'm going to make a commitment. I brought together the American automobile industry and they agreed on an ambitious goal, 50% electric vehicles by sales by year 2030. That's the commitment that they made. I didn't make it for them. They made it because they've realized what the future is. I saw it when I drove Ford's all-electric 150 pickup truck, which I might add, which was disappointing. It's faster than my Corvette. You think I'm kidding? It's a 4.2. You know, although I did suggest if I'm out of office and they have the first electric Corvette, I want to buy it. But at any rate, you know, and when I drove the electric Jeep Wagoneer around South Lawn of the White House. You know, to date, automakers have announced investments of more than $100 billion in EV manufacturing. $100 billion. That's along with us setting ambitious standards to cut pollution in cars and trucks, to boost fuel economy standards, which we're going to be announcing very soon, upping the mileage requirement for the minimum mileage requirement. But that's not all. The bipartisan infrastructure law, which the folks behind me are the reason why that occurred, I signed, provides billions of dollars for a nationwide network of 500,000 charging stations. 500,000. And with electric school buses. By the way, down in North Carolina, you should see the factory down there. These buses, they have electric vehicles. It has a platform, folks, from me to you, about that thick, weighs about 6 zillion pounds, no engine, nothing else, that's it. But it's all electric, all electric. And guess what? We're going to eliminate tens of thousands of diesel school buses, which pollute the air and pollute the lungs. And look, industry, this industry and union workers are all stepping up. And there's a lot more. Here in Washington State, you're going to triple the federal commitment to your link. We're going to triple the federal commitment to your Link Light rail system, speeding progress in the largest transit. As my colleagues in the Senate will recall, I was referred to as Mr. Amtrak. I've taken over 1,200,000 miles in Amtrak, commuting every single day. You think I'm joking? For 36 years, every single day the Senate was in session to go home and see my kids. But the folks, you know, it's a simple proposition. Most people don't realize it. Given a choice to go from point A to point B and rail, electric rail, or drive your automobile, if you can get there fast or faster on rail, you take the rail. The estimates will take millions of vehicles off the road. The largest transit construction project in the country that runs entirely on clean energy. The bipartisan infrastructure law provides $66 billion. It's passed, $66 billion for freight rail, $39 billion for public transit, $10.6 billion for clean electric buses, and $2.5 billion for clean ferries on my coast of Delaware and out here for you all. This will take millions of cars worth of pollution off the road and get people to places quicker. You know, look, I think one Amtrak train carries as many passengers, I know the statistics, as 6 lanes of a major interstate highway. That's how many passengers it carries. Look, it matters. We saw new standards. We set new standards. We slashed methane and brought over 100 nations together when I was at the big meeting we had in Europe. 100 nations around the globe. And I got them to, there's 2 things I was able to accomplish. One, I got a pledge from, I think it was 144 of them, that they would eliminate methane and do the same thing we're doing to keep it. It's the most damaging of all the pollutants that are going up. We also set new standards for super polluting HFC emissions. Remember the big fight we had? I know because when I almost lost an election because the DuPont company makes the long story. Anyway, but look, we set new standards for cleaner cement. You say, what the hell are you talking about, Joe? This is probably the only audience to understand cleaner cement. Cement is an incredible pollutant, an incredible pollutant. And it matters because cement's responsible for 8% of the global climate emissions. Cement. I got to admit to you, as long as I've been involved in this, until 2 years ago, I didn't know that. And we're delivering across the country. Lots of folks have promised it, but my administration is actually delivering and revitalizing communities across Appalachia. Look, folks, I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania, where I was raised. The reason I got to Delaware is coal died. My dad was not in the coal mines, he was in sales, but the whole economy died. And, you know, you can understand why in places like West Virginia and southeastern Pennsylvania, and why people were worried about doing away with coal. You know, but it's their jobs. They don't know what they're going to do. But guess what? In the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the law is going to help us cap and seal abandoned mines. There's thousands of abandoned mines. Cap and seal them. They're no longer going to see pollution in the air or the water. The law is putting abandoned mine workers to work at the same salary they were working digging the mines in the first place. There's several thousand of these wells that have to be capped, and they have to harvest the energy, and they're going to get paid. So we've provided alternatives. They're manufacturing and installing solar panels where they once dug for coal. Look, out here in the West, we're repowering retired power plants and clean hydrogen and advanced nuclear, making them economic hubs again. And in the heartland, in the fields that feed our country, we're planting cover crops to pull carbon out of the air and out of the atmosphere. You know, they're becoming carbon sinks. Look, across the country, we set the first ever national conservation goal and protected more land and water than any other administration and record in our first year, because we can do it. And now the farmers are beginning to realize, if I put things in conservation, I get paid for putting cover crops down that absorb carbon. It makes sense to me. It keeps the land open, and it makes the environment much better. And they get paid for it, and they should get paid for it. It's their land. We're protecting natural wonders and cultural treasures, national monuments. I remember a little girl came up to me with her, I don't know how it happened, but I was walking outside, and a woman came up with a little girl and she said, "Mr. President, please protect Bears Ears." I said, "I beg your pardon, honey?" She said, "Please protect Bears Ears." I said, "Bears Ears?" She said, "Yes." And I knew what Bears Ears was because I've tried to take my kids to almost every national park. And I said, "Okay, honey." She said, "Promise me, promise me." And we did. Bears Ears, forests like the Tongass Forest. And by the way, we got some of the conservative Republicans to support it in their state. We got some support for it. And now we're working to restore the salmon runs here in the Northwest. Look, we're putting America on the cutting edge. We've approved the first commercial-scale offshore wind project in federal waters, which has already broken ground, with U.S. workers and U.S. Steel going to be building these facilities. By the way, I was up in Colorado and looking at the facilities we have there. You know, we now have windmills that the blades in those windmills 102 yards long. Hear me? 102 yards long. They can be placed way out in the ocean. And, you know, and by the way, I made it clear to my friends up in Nantucket in that area, I don't want to hear any more about you don't like looking at them. They're pretty. But seriously, it's incredible the breakthroughs that they're making. Once you tell a nation that we can do this, go do it, it's amazing what happens. It's amazing what happens. We've launched the first ever commercial flight powered by 100% sustainable aviation fuel. Lifted off with fuel grown here in America. Grown in America. We set the first net zero commitments for U.S. steel companies. And now we're rewarded for clean production through our first ever international carbon-based trade deal, which makes clean American steel cheaper to buy than dirty steel from other countries. And we're making it clear to the rest of the world that's what we're going to do. We put environmental justice at the center of what we do, addressing the disproportionate health, environmental, and economic impacts that have been borne primarily by communities of color, places too often left behind. I grew up when coal died in Scranton. We moved to Delaware. My dad had grown up. We moved to a little steel town called Claymont, Delaware, which is right that arch that goes up into the Pennsylvania area there. And it's near a place called Marcus Hook, where there were more, at the time, more oil refineries than Houston, because of 10 million people in that Delaware Valley up there. And when I went to a small little school, that was about a mile from the apartment complex we lived in, and a little school called Holy Rosary. And you couldn't walk to school because although it was a 4-lane access highway, it was just too dangerous to cross some of the streets. And my mother would get in and when it came it came the fall, this is the God's truth. And you'd get in the car, and there's a little frost on the window, turn on the windshield wiper, there'd be an oil slick. Not a joke. I have asthma, and 80% of the people who, in fact, we grew up with have asthma. That's what you call a fence line community. I understand what it's like. We only lived there. I went to school there for 12 years, but I didn't live there that whole time. My generic point is, you take a look, my state used to be, thank God it's no longer, had the highest cancer rate of any state in the nation because we have fence line communities going down Route 9, going down along the Delaware River, major facilities, oil plants and the like. And the people that get hurt are the people who live on the other side of those fences. I made a commitment. They're the people who are going to get helped as we move this. They're the people where the money's going to go to help their neighborhoods. And this bipartisan infrastructure law gives communities the money they need to get forever chemicals, PFAS, out of the water. They're deadly, deadly, and a lot of it's responsible because we, the government, and the military has engaged in activities that we didn't realize how dangerous over the years. But we're going to get rid of it all. We started replacing 100% of all the lead pipes and poison that poison our water in America. 400,000 schools and daycare centers. The kids can't turn on that water without getting worried about whether there's lead in that water. 10 million homes in America, and here in this city, in this state. Because every American, every child should be able to turn on a faucet and drink clean water, which will also create thousands of good-paying jobs for plumbers and pipe fitters and others. Look, all you got to do is look around. Cities and states are acting. Businesses are acting. I'm acting. We need Congress to act as well. And the people behind me are pushing Congress hard. They're pushing Congress hard. Calling to pass new investments and tax credits aimed directly at lowering costs for families. Look, you talk about, there's only 2 senators occasionally don't vote with me. That's right? Literally, 48, they talk about the split in the Democratic Party. There's virtually no split in the Democratic Party. We just happen to have 50 presidents. You have 50 senators and 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. I mean, anyone can change the dynamic, right? But all kidding aside, 48% of my Democratic colleagues in the Senate vote with me 94% of the time. So it's not like we have a split, but we have virtually no Republicans. There's some. We get up to as many as 7 or 8 will vote. This ain't your father's Republican Party. Not a joke. All you got to do is look what is being played this morning about the tape that was released. Anyway, but all kidding aside, this is a MAGA party now. It's, you got the senator from Texas and others. These guys are a different breed of cat. They're not like what I served with for so many years. And the people who know better are afraid to act correctly because they know they'll be primaried. I've had, I won't mention any of them, I promised I never would and I won't, but up to 6 come to me and say, Joe, I want to be with you on such and such, but I can't, I'll be primaried. I'll lose my race. I'll lose my race. So folks, this is going to start to change. Look, that bill that we talked about, that is the infrastructure bill, there were 2 pieces of it. It was one bill initially. And that bill had about $800 million in it for environmental related issues. Well, the one that didn't pass, the part that didn't pass yet, is one that has $531 million for environmental related issues. We got a lot done, though, in the bill that passed called the infrastructure bill that has to do with the environment, including tax credits for purchase of electric and fuel cell vehicles, new or used, which you're going to save a typical driver about $80 a month from not having to pay gas at the pump. Tax credits for folks to buy solar panels and heat pumps, more efficient windows, saving each an average of $500 a year to do this. Just making your home tighter so you don't leak the heat and leak the air conditioning when you're going out. And my pen's ready. My pen's ready to sign. I'm anxious to sign these. Get some of these bills to my desk. And we can't forget. We can't forget that achieving our ambitious climate goals is going to require nature itself to play a role. If you compare the map of North America in 1620, and we have some of these maps, with America today, you'll see much of how much we've devastated our forest. I mean, it used to be, if you look from the Atlantic coast almost to the Mississippi River, was heavy forest. And we took it all down over those years. That's why today I'm signing an executive order to conserve our forests that do so much to protect us. You know, our forests are our planet's lungs. They literally are recycling and cycling CO2 out of the atmosphere. That's what they do. By the way, I spent time down in the Amazon and in Colombia and in Brazil, and guess what? More carbon is taken out of the air in the Amazon, that carbon sink, than every bit of carbon that is generated on a daily basis in the entire United States from every source. So what we should be doing, and I'm trying to get done, they're not going to maybe like this, we should be paying the Brazilians not to cut down their forest. We got to cut ours down. We got to cut ours down. We got the benefit of it. We've got these third world countries, not third world, some are, in Africa and in South America. We got the industrial countries have to help. Scientists estimate that the protection and restoration of our natural lands and waters can provide more than 1/3 of the solution to climate change. Just that, if we did nothing else. So today I'm about to sign an executive order to strengthen our forests on federal lands and make them and the local economies they support more resilient in the face of wildfires. I've flown over every major wildfire in this country with FEMA since, not every, a couple I didn't, but the vast majority of them, and it's devastating. I've seen it from helicopters with FEMA just flying over here, Idaho. I didn't get to go to Oregon, but California. It's absolutely devastating. So we're going to work with state and local and tribal governments to map, catalog, and then conserve old-growth forests on our public lands. These are the forests. We're going to do this. These are the forests that store, sequester incredible amounts of carbon and help us fight climate change. The forests that are home to majestic trees like the ones here in this park's magnificent forest. You know, the executive order I'm going to sign is going to make good on the international forest protection commitments from the proposal I made in Scotland at Glasgow 26. I got 140 countries to sign up and say that together we represent 90% of the world's forests. And this includes our own effort to crack down on trafficking of illegal logged wood and products like the ones illegally deforesting areas around the world. In addition to that, I put in the bipartisan infrastructure bill that we're going to plant 1.2 billion trees. 1.2 billion trees across this country to begin the vital work of reforesting America. It makes sense, and it also makes a big difference, including in our cities and on our city streets. The executive order also recognizes that when it comes to protecting our communities from floods and storms, nature can help us as well. For example, when it comes to stopping flooding, sometimes a wetland is more effective than a seawall. I live along a state where it's only average 3 feet above sea level, the state of Delaware, the Delaware River, the Delaware Bay, and the Atlantic Ocean. Well, you saw what happened, by the way, down in the Gulf. You saw what happened in Louisiana when they had that. You know, it matters whether there's a wetlands. They're significantly more consequential than seawalls. In order to help bring more of those nature-based solutions into our planning, we have to move quickly. And with this executive order on Earth Day, we're also showing this moment of maximum threat and urgency can also be a moment of enormous hope and enormous opportunity. You know, that we carry in heart and mind the image of the ideal place, the right place, the one true home, known or unknown, actually visionary. I know you all feel it. You wouldn't be sitting here in cold with your coats not on if you didn't. So I'm not going to sign this executive order, and I think we're going to I just think this is the beginning of a new day, and we're going to just have to overtake the opposition on this. I really mean it. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to sign this executive order. Strengthening the nation's forest communities and local economies, and it's all about planting about 1.2 billion trees. So, and by the way, anybody bring their shovels? All right. Is this a state park or is this a city park?
City.
City park.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
On tribal land.
let me give you.
Right here, right here.
It's right behind you.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right. Nice job, Bruce.
Thank you.
And by the way, you notice who runs the Department of Interior now. All right. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. So great. See you at the next event.
Well, yeah, but I tell you what, I'm excited about it.
Oh.